All right, I'm gonna do a quick review of the Seek Outside teepee tent that we've had for about a year now. We've used it on a handful of different trips in all seasons from last winter to now this winter. And I think this is actually our coldest trip yet. Tonight it got down to, or the forecast said around 6 degrees Fahrenheit. So fairly chilly, and it's a game changer. I've been winter camping now for like the last 12 years, and up until like 2 or 3 years ago, never had any form of heat, and I think this is so far the best version. So I'll show you around. This is the 8-person teepee style, and it has a wood stove inside. I'll tell you guys some of the things I like about it, some of the things I don't, and then some recommendations and tools I would say you should consider if you're gonna go this route. So overall, I think the big pros are, one, it's very compact. This is an 8-person. I have not yet had 8 people in it. I think the most I've had is 5, but we got this size just because we knew in the winter it's nice to kind of hang out inside. And so it's really big, but it still packs down fairly small. The tent itself and the stove, I believe, weigh around 12 pounds combined, which is very light for the number of people that it can fit. And I've found that we like having extra space beyond just the number of people that it's rated for. So even if you're only gonna do 4 people, I would probably still do a 6 or an 8-person. Or if you're gonna do more people, then even larger. And it's just nice that the bigger the size of the base, the taller they are, and the more headroom you have. So this is the 8-person one. I can stand up, walk around super easily. It has a fairly quick setup. I think last night it took around 15-20 minutes to get the tent fully set up, the stove fully set up, and then, you know, a fire started. And that was also with completely frozen ground, so that kind of took a lot longer than normal. Nice soft ground. It's probably only a 10-minute setup, including the stove, which goes together fairly easily. The first time can take a little bit of getting used to, but after that, it goes together quick. One other nice thing about it is it's somewhat modular. So the stove itself you can use with the tent, or you can leave it at home if you don't need it, like if you're going out in the summer, which would make it even lighter. You can also get different forms of bug nets and nests and things inside if you want to have like a separate room that has like a floor and it's all clean, stuff like that. Or if you want to modify just the setup pattern, you can see on the outside here, there's these attachment points here, which you can use for guy lines out to different stakes if you just want to give it more stability, so that if it's windy, like it was kind of windy last night and you get a little bit of flapping, you could stabilize it that way. Or if you just want to set the tent up to where it's smaller, more compact, because you don't have a big footprint in the woods, or if it's super windy and you just want to have less of a sail effect, you can use these as the primary stake holes instead of those ones down there. And so then you just kind of flap the outside in, and it would just be like a couple of feet shorter, and you'd shorten the pole inside. So this one, did get it already seam sealed. I don't know if they all come like that or not, but definitely need to do that if they don't, because in the rain otherwise the seams might leak. And then come on inside. So this is the 8-person. You can kind of see on this side there's tons of space. Last night it was just the 2 of us, and so we had plenty of room for like our whole bed each. And then we each had like camp chairs, we can hang out, cooler inside, tabletop, cook, everything. You can just hang out in here, plenty of space. And there's also another door on this side, so you can open it up, go in and out. And this is the stove. It assembles fairly quickly, especially after you've done it. It's just 4 posts and then a box that assembles, and you use the posts with these wing nuts, and that clamps it all together. And then you have a damper and a spark arrestor up here, and then the stovepipe just shoots right out the top. So it comes together fairly quickly. As far as cons go, so there's not that many, but a few problems that I've had. One, there's little parts on the stove, including these little cable rings that hold the stove together. I lost them one day setting up in the snow. I don't know if my dog grabbed them or if I just dropped them, but you can't put the stovepipe together without them. And so there are little pieces that if you lose them, you're kind of screwed as far as the heat is concerned. Obviously that was my error, but still just something to pay attention to. Another thing is drying it out. So because it's single wall, it still gets condensation. Like even right now where it's warm in here and we kept it hot, the lowest edge still has some condensation and frost at the edge. So when you take it down, you have to dry it out like any other tent. But because it's so massive, it can be a little bit challenging at home. So, you know, if you have a big garage, it's probably fine. But like if you're trying to dry it out in your living room, you might end up having to move it around for half a day just to get the whole thing fully aired out. Or you could just set it up in your yard, I suppose, if you have good weather and it's dried out. But it is a lot of material to dry out once you do get home. Okay, while he's warming his hands, the other cons that I can think of are, one, with the stove, because it's so lightweight, there's not a lot of thermal mass, and so if you intend on running it all the way through the night, you have to tend it throughout the night, because yeah, it tends to be more of a fast like fluctuation in temperature. Like it gets hot really quickly, and so that's nice when you start it, but it also will cool down fairly quickly. And so you need to either have, you know, big like chunks of wood that you can stuff it full of, like we did last night. And it actually, there was coals this morning, which I was very surprised by. Usually I will get up through the night and tend it if I want to keep it warm. Yeah, so that, and then if you are going out somewhere that only has like sticks, small chunks of wood, then bringing some wood from home can be nice. Like if just some big logs that you can use at the end of the night just to bridge through the night when you don't want to have to get up and tend it as frequently. Another downside is the footprint on this thing is pretty massive, so you do need a big area to set up. If it's super uneven, it can be a little bit challenging to get it all tensioned correctly without like slack areas. I do have a trick though for setting it up that I just learned. And for the setup process, because it's a circle and you want to evenly set up, it can be hard initially when you're just planting everything. And so for a while I would just kind of guess and set up corners and then adjust it, and then once I felt like it was appropriate, I would do the rest of the stakes. But per the recommendation of Seek Outside, which I should have followed last year, I cut a string that is the length of the radius of the tent itself, put a stake where I wanted the middle to be, ran that string out, put one of the stakes in, went to the other side, did kind of a 4-corner type of a setup. Then I brought the center pole inside, adjusted it to the height that I wanted, which you have a variety of options depending on how the ground is, if it's concave, convex, whatever. And that was by far a lot easier than before. So cut a piece of paracord or something. For this tent, the 8-person, I think it was 7'11" is the radius. So the overall diameter of this thing is nearly 16 feet, which is pretty crazy. And the height, as you can see, I can't even touch the top standing up here. And so I can, yeah, walk around this entire thing. As far as recommendations for things to bring with it, one is Tyvek. So I don't use a floor like the Nest system in this. I just leave it floorless. But I always bring Tyvek. This is just a home wrap. It's super lightweight and waterproof, still breathable. It's nice. It can be a little crinkly. So when you first get some, you might want to like throw it in the washing machine just to get rid of that crinkle so that when you're rolling around at night, it's not as loud. But some sort of ground sheet like that is nice to keep you off the ground. Next, definitely bring something to cut your firewood. Breaking sticks is fine, but we end up burning quite a bit of wood, especially when in the winter it gets dark at like 6 p.m. and you're just hanging out for multiple hours. And so I always bring this thing, which is it's a silky saw, and they have different sizes. These things are amazing if you aren't gonna bring like a real chainsaw, something like that. And like you can even carry this if you're backpacking and carrying the tent. And then I also bring some form of hatchet or axe. And again, this is kind of the lightweight version that I have, small. And so it doesn't have a lot of weight to it, but that combo is wonderful for keeping this thing stoked without having to, try to break sticks. Another recommendation is to bring medical kit and tape of some sort, because it's easy to burn stuff. Last night I touched the stove on accident, burned my jacket, and so having like some gear tape to mend your clothes is nice. And then obviously you're using an axe, and so the chance of cutting something or yourself is there. And so having a medical kit and just gear tape is a good idea, since, you know, when you introduce a stove into the mix, I think it opens up windows for other issues. Another thing that I just tried for the first time this trip is string lights. Now, you might think of these as an Instagram only product, but it turns out it's really nice just to have like steady low light, so that you don't have to use headlamps all night long, because yeah, the headlamps, when you're talking to each other or whatever, you end up just shining into each other's face and burning them throughout the night or whatever. And so this thing was actually enough to where last night after we got in here, we just turned off our headlamps and there's a nice glow in here. And yeah, so there's that. And then a couple other recommendations. Don't undersize your sleeping bag because you have a stove. Bring a sleeping bag that would be adequate without the stove, because if you go to an area that you don't have firewood, or you suck at gathering firewood, or whatever, the stove just goes dead in the night and you don't want to fire it up again, then it's nice to have a decent sleeping bag. I think it's just a good idea all around. And then lastly, if you are going to let it burn out, I like to pre-stage firewood at night when it's still warm for the morning. So yeah, cut your kindling, set it all up, and then that way in the morning all you have to do is lean over, shove it into the stove box, and go from there. But yeah, overall I think it's a sweet option. It's luxurious compared to like the standard backpacking tent that you get into and you shiver for the first hour until you warm up, and then you have no space to move around. In the winter it's just nice to have this good dry heat, which is certainly better than like the propane style, like a Mr. Buddy heater. Those are nice, they feel good, but they don't dry things out as well. And so yeah, overall I think it's a pretty sweet option for groups or when it's really cold.